Welcome back to Denver Broncos Mile High View. No commercials, no bullshit. So, what I do is I try to give you the the typical shit that's out there that everybody clamors to. So I post a video called Denver Broncos Fangio to fire Gary Kubiak. And oh, did I get the thumbs down for that one. With somebody saying, well, it's clickbait. Are you fucking for real? 17 hours later, literally, Gary Kubiak gets fired, essentially. And if you think Fangio didn't have a hand, at least a small hand into it, you're a moron. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What I was doing was putting a thought out there that nobody else would say. Can Gary Kubiak be fired? Because, let's face it, he is the old way of doing things. His offenses were slow, sluggish, the latter part. Not that he hasn't had success, but the idea was, in the firing of Gary Kubiak, was looking, he was looking back, getting old retreads. I posted about Rick Dennison. And, did I get flack for that? Am I crazy or what? But as it turns out, this old way of doing things and thinking just isn't going to cut it. So give the Denver Broncos credit for that, Elway credit for that. That's why I had to ask, hey, can Fangio actually fire him? Now, it was Chris Harris Jr., who was not delusional, who was saying, we're stuck in the flip phone days with offense and even practicing for these defenses. So, maybe this is why Gary Kubiak got fired. And maybe I'm not so off to ask, can he be fired? 17 hours later, he does get fired. Nobody else asked that question. But let's move on, at any rate. Now, the question has to be asked is, these conversations that got Gary Kubiak fired should have been given, have been talked about before now. When the time they were deciding to get rid of Vance Joseph, all this should have been discussed. Okay? Now, the Broncos are going to talk to a quarterback's coach and make him an OC from San Francisco. And, of course, Sports Talk Radio is making this seem like, he would coach the backup for Garoppolo. I mean, come on. Maybe they brought Munchek in as if Gary Kubiak doesn't go, or if something doesn't happen, would you be opposed to be an offensive coordinator? I'm sure that conversation was there, and I would definitely talk to Munchek. And here's the thing too that you don't hear from Sports Talk Radio in Denver is things aren't so great in Pittsburgh right now with all the drama that's going on. Maybe Elway can get Munchek to be a offensive coordinator. Is he, play caller? Is he qualified to be a play caller? I don't know. But he sure as hell would help the Denver's biggest problem, the offensive line. And if you get that part of the equation done, you can run all these plays. They want to run all this new fancy, fangled offenses that everybody's, clamoring for. You can't do it without an offensive line. It ain't going to happen. And even with these offenses, it's still quick read offenses. You got to get rid of the ball quick. You heard the Fangio, if you listen to his press conference, the very first thing he tells you that these offenses, these quarterbacks, they're getting rid of the ball in just over 3 seconds. And I've been preaching about that too. So, and again, the whole reason I started this was because of what Sports Talk Radio and fans that just want to follow it and just stay, and just not think on their own. and ask the tough questions. Or, it's not all about, orange-colored glasses, rose-colored glasses. It's not about that. You got to be objective when you look at stuff. Now it seems like now talking about objectiveness is now the criticism about firing Gary Kubiak. Okay, now you're scrambling. The word is they're scrambling to look for an offensive coordinator, but are they really? Or was Mike Munchek really, was that the A game all along? And maybe they're going to talk to some other guys to make it look, again, appearances. But give the Broncos credit where credit's due. For not, going, because I'm sure he was saying maybe we can get Flacco, and which obviously would have been the logical course of action, I guess, in a Gary Kubiak perfect world. But that's going back in time again. And let me just say this. There's no guarantee that drafting a quarterback or getting one and, maybe now you do get Nick Foles to come in. You upgrade the offensive line, and maybe that guy can actually do something. Before with Gary Kubiak, I was like, well, what's the sense in running Nick Foles? It's not even a system that he's been thriving in. So, the best you can do was Flacco. And then again, you're going down the road of the past. So, anyway, I'm sure by now everybody knows that the firing of Gary Kubiak, let's call it what it is. I mean, he was definitely a shoo, and everybody knows that. But the bad news about all this is that this was not handled correctly. These questions should have been handled long before this, and it's just, I guess, mismanagement again. Up at the top. Maybe it sorts itself out. I don't know. It's still early. It's still early.